I'm Dan Ward.
And I'm Kevin Jones.
And this is our first time we're doing this. It's the Deck of the Week.
Yeah, so basically we thought we would do a bit of a deck tech every week ahead of that weekend's tournament and do, the relevant format that we were about to play or that people were about to play heading into that weekend. And we would look at a deck that either did well in the previous events of that format or was, poised to had been trending upward online or had been, gaining popularity recently or was buzzed about, whatever you want to call it. So we picked it. We would pick a deck each week, and we would do basically a live deck tech. But instead of it being like a deck tech at a tournament, it would just be us kind of doing basically a visual article and a deck tech at the same time on a different deck each week, and it'll help you guys be ready for the weekend's tournament, and we'll learn a thing or two and get some more airtime and everything.
Yeah.
Everything's gravy, so let's hope it works out.
Yeah, before we start, I just want to let everyone know you can see both of our Twitter handles are there. Feel free before and after. This is less interactive than our show Weekly Ward, which is every Wednesday on 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, where we try to interact with the chat as much. There's less interaction. We're going to try to just move right along. Yeah. But feel free, if you have questions afterwards, either let us know on kerwinsgamestore.com. You can go on our website, take a look at all our stuff we got there, and also just message us on Twitter.
Depending on time, if a few interesting questions pop up, we could answer a couple questions at the end, or we could do a frequently asked questions at the end or something like that.
Yeah, we're going to start off, just refrain from those today. We're going to try to get a fan page so that the future reference, we can get some input to let us know what everybody wants us to feature.
Yeah, we definitely want feedback because it's our first time doing this. It's not going to be perfect, obviously. And like Dan said, we do the chat on Wednesdays of the Weekly Ward. That show is basically based off the chat. That's kind of the premise of the show, is to talk to the chat and have an interactive sort of Sports Center thing.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just going to be and when he says less interactive with the chat, we're not going to interact with the chat at all.
Yes.
I don't think we have the chat up right now. We can't see it.
So,
because we're just basically doing a presentation, like a PowerPoint or what have you.
Here we go. And we're starting it off.
A storm's a-coming, Daddy. A storm's a-coming.
So this one being our first one ever, we're trying to prepare you for the upcoming event, which right now we have SCG Baltimore happening
this weekend, a Modern Open.
And if you can see, there's a storm moving in on Baltimore.
So I walked into work today, and I saw this radar graphic, and I flipped out because I have a softball game this afternoon, and I'm like, no way! I checked my phone, it's not supposed to rain! Look at that, that's crazy! It looks like a hurricane! And Tony's like, yeah, we're getting this at 2 o'clock, and I'm like, no way, and I tilted off. And he's like, oh, I'm kidding. 2 o'clock, you guys are doing the Modern Storm video, and this is one of the graphics. And I'm like, oh. But yeah, so this weekend, Modern, down in Baltimore, Star City Games Open, and Modern Storm has been shooting up the Magic Online charts, both in performance and in popularity in the recent, 2 months maybe, month and a half?
Yeah, it's unreal because right now it's parallel with Affinity, which has always been an online staple. The modern metagame is a lot different than the real life. Real life, everybody plays what they have kind of thing, and the numbers doesn't equate to exactly what's going on in Moto. But Modern Storm, it's crazy because it's been a deck that's been in Modern since its conception, and they just keep taking cards and toys away from it, and it'll have ebbs and flows, I guess is better than just lulls, and it just keeps coming back.
But it did have lulls for a while. It was borderline unplayable for long periods of time. But it just keeps fighting to be playable.
Yeah, it's like that cat that like comes on your porch and then like you feed it a little bit and then you don't see it for months. And then it comes back when it wants some more food.
And you're just like, get out of here.
So I've played a lot against this. I actually just lost to it in the regional we had here 2 weeks ago. What is, like, you have any stories with Storm?
Yeah, I played against it at the first Modern Pro Tour. I don't think I played against it in the tournament, but I did play against it in a couple side events. And they had Ponders and Preordains, and it was crazy.
Wild
it was
West,
so good.
The Wild West, if you will.
Gitaxian Probe, Rite of Flame, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And the deck was really, really good. And they said, hey, you can't have Gitaxian Probe. Hey, you can't have Rite of Flame. Hey, you can't have Ponder or Preordain. You know what? You're still winning? You're still winning? You can't have Seething Song.
Yeah.
And then recently they said, all right, finally you can't have Gitaxian Probe. and the deck still wins.
It's still winning.
Baral, Chief of Compliance, is a huge addition to this deck, as we'll see shortly when we run down the cards. A card from Aether Revolt. Aether Revolt, right? I could be wrong. That card is from Aether Revolt or Amonkhet. Aether Revolt.
There you
Great.
go. So we're going to get into the cards here. This is one of the, as Kevin was saying, one of the newest additions and one of the heavy hitters. We've seen Storm decks in the past kind of rely on Goblin Electromancer and also the enchantment. What's the one in the red?
Pyromancer Ascension.
Pyromancer Ascension. There you go. Thank you. And those two were like basically the focal points. Pyromancer Ascension would allow you to have, if you would, another 2-drop that you could just storm off and win the game with.
Yeah.
The problem with that, there was a lot higher of a setup cost than having Baral Chief of Compliance.
Also, it was like an enabler. It enabled you to storm off, but also got beaten by Graveyard Hate.
Yeah.
Which these don't. Like, you can just ritual up to, Grave Shot if it's in your hand plus Remand, or ritual up to empty. With these cards, without ever using your graveyard, lets you get around Rest in Peace, which is one of the best sideboard cards in the format against Storm.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's important that you have an option. Also, if there's too many, non-interactive hate cards that don't affect the board, like Leyline, Rest in Peace, Cage, you can just apply the beats with a couple Goblin tokens and Baral and Electromancer.
Yeah, these are like must-kill threats, and I've played against Storm a lot. Recently, not as much, but like having to defend against a Goblin Electromancer, you usually have to kill that card, or you know that you're like in danger of losing the game next turn. Now adding 4 more, or 3 more in this case, because they went down, the list that we've chosen has gone down an Electromancer, just improves on how many times they're going to be able to put what looks on board as a turn 3 kill.
Well, it's slightly surprising that you would see a deck with like 8 2-drop creatures that they kind of want to live to execute their plan being really good in a format where Fatal Push is like dominant.
Yeah.
But at the same time, these creatures only need to live for 1 turn, and sometimes if you untap with them, you probably win, and sometimes if they don't kill it at instant speed immediately, you can go like, play Baral on turn 4, just go nuts.
Yeah.
And like, they don't have, it puts a lot of pressure on their mana. They always have to leave it up and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's one of the most dangerous things I will say about this deck, I think, is that we're looking at Baral right now, and it's obviously a little bit more powerful than Electromancer, but it's legendary. But if you play it on turn 2 and your opponent doesn't have information about your hand, they feel like they're being threatened kind of now in the Marvel metagame and Standard, where you have to do something about it or you're going to lose. Mm-hmm. So like, in a deck that you don't really want to have like multiple Barals because they're legendary and they get stuck in your hand, they're using their Abrupt Decays, their Fatal Pushes right away.
They're killing it immediately, so it doesn't matter that it's legendary. And it's like the Heart of Kiran effect almost.
Yeah,
and it also doesn't matter that like it's legendary for another reason, is that like with the remands that we'll get to later, you can loot away an excess Baral with the Baral, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a sweet interaction.
And if your Baral lives, like you have enough redundancy in the other spots of your deck that if you have a dead card or 2 in your hand, like the rest of your cards are going to function towards the ultimate goal, which is like, digging deeper, storming, and going crazy. So like it doesn't necessarily matter that you have, that you drew 2 Barals.
You said something about digging deeper, right?
Yeah, dig it.
What cards are we using to dig deeper?
Oh, here we go. Here's got a 9-card cantrip suite. We got 4 Serum Visions. We got 4 Sleight of Hand. These are the main ones. These are the ways that you sculpt your hand. These are the ways that you fix your mulligans. That you, that you mulligan well. They're just the redundancy. They smooth out your draws, and it's the essential part of any blue-based combo deck for sure.
Yeah. Whereas we're going to get into the win conditions, and we've kind of shown you the heart of the deck, because without the creatures, the deck probably wouldn't exist, or I would say it just wouldn't exist. But like, I think actually in this deck, Serum Visions as like part of what Kevin's talking about, the sculpting package in this deck. I think Serum Visions is one of, if not the most important card for this deck.
Certainly, as they have many ways to like Manamorphose is another quote-unquote cantrip that like they can use. So Serum Visions is super good because they can scry into a card they need and then immediately get it.
Yeah. And
not cost themselves any mana to do so because the Manamorphose makes mana.
Yeah, and it's weird because you brought up Preordain as the earlier Storm builds, but I believe that Serum Visions is really good in the effect of being able to scry and know what's going on top is almost more effective than drawing sometimes, because your opponent will be playing Thoughtseizes, will be playing Inquisitions, and you don't want to allow them to be able to strip the card you're trying to get to.
Well, I think Preordain is like way better on turn 1.
Sure.
And then Serum Visions is probably way better on like turns 3 through 5.
Okay.
Preordain might still be better on turn 2.
Thank God they don't have Preordain, huh?
Well, when you're looking for lands, like, you want Preordain a lot.
Yeah.
Because it helps you hit lands, and also, like, helps you hit what you need immediately, but Seer Visions, like, helps set up your crucial turns, and this deck, like, targets, like, turns 3 through 5 to do, like, powerful things.
Okay.
You know, turn 3 if your 2-drop creature lives, and then a little bit later if you have to play it in the same turn, or if you have to naturally go off.
So the one of Peer Through Depths, you think that's just a concession? You can only play 4 of the cards that are already playing 4 of, and it just gigs a little deeper than those cards can?
Yeah, it's just a little bit. It's a little bit more expensive and a little bit more narrow, so it's worse than the 4 ofs, obviously. But I do think it's good. It's nice at finding Past in Flames or gifts, and like there's enough powerful things in this deck that you'll get your money's worth out of the 1 Peer. And sometimes, you know, it costs 1 with your 2-drops as well. So
All right.
I think it's fine.
Moving on here. Now we're talking about the explosiveness of the deck.
Yep.
The cards that allow this deck to be able to function the way it wants to. We're talking all 4 ofs here. We're talking all the rituals. So we have Pyretic Ritual and Desperate Ritual featuring the new art from the Duel deck. It's kind of cool. And,
I was going to say, what is that art? It's so tilting.
Yeah. And we have what you were talking about before, the 4 Manamorphose. Can you talk a little bit about Manamorphose? Explain why that card is so important to this deck.
It's just the replacing itself and cantripping is just like essentially exactly what a Storm deck needs.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't cost you anything. It gives you back a card, fixes your mana for blue,
Which is really
and
important.
red, and then when you have a 2-drop creature out, it gives you blue and red, and then the red rituals, and then the blue cantrips, and then the second Manamorphose gives you 2 blue once you have a bunch of red, so that you can cantrip multiple times in gifts and use remand and stuff. Like all sorts of utility with Manamorphose, and it gets you to the things that you're scrying into with your Serum Visions. And yeah, no, Manamorphose is just insane.
Yeah.
Like I think it's weird that that they've been banning things like Seething Song and all that, because like I think this card is constantly just the offender. Like if you don't want Storm to be good, just take away all the free things that replace themselves.
Sure.
And like Gitaxian Probe is part of that. Manamorphose is a huge part of that, and like the mana fixing is super important too, because post board like they have Blood Moons a lot of the time, and they're gonna seek to like Blood Moon aggressively, so they have minimal blue sources, or even minimal red sources sometimes too. So Manamorphose is super important for that.
Yeah,
turns 1 red source.
It's one of those cards. It's like it makes the deck operate on a different level because you know they have yet to make blue rituals, and for this deck, it's easy to accumulate a lot of red mana, especially when you have the creatures in play. So every spell is costing 1 less, and you're gaining 2 mana per spell. But there's times where you get to these blue cantrip cards that cost blue, and you need to be able to utilize the fact that you have excess amount of red mana.
Absolutely.
And now more than ever with the blue mana in this deck because of the next couple cards in the slide here.
Blue mana is more important than it has been in past Storm decks, as usually their kills were all basically red based.
Yes.
You know, Ascension plus bolts and grape shots or Passing Flames or whatever.
Yeah.
But now Gifts Ungiven is a huge focal point of the deck, and you can use Gifts Ungiven the turn after you played and resolved a Baral or Electromancer. Right there, it costs 1 less. You know.
Yeah.
You get 4 cards, and usually the most common gifts package is Ritual, Past in Flames, Manamorphose.
Okay.
And that way, like, they don't want to give you the Past in Flames, or they want to give you the Past in Flames because it has graveyard utility. So if they put it in the graveyard, it's like they didn't actually, you didn't actually lose a card. It's like you got a 3-for-1 almost.
Yeah.
So they'll seek to put the Past in Flames in your hand, but if you get 2 rituals with it, you can just cast it.
Yeah.
And like giving you a ritual, and then there's so much redundancy in rituals that like it's quite possible that you have one in your hand and they don't know that. So like they'll try to stick you on mana by giving you the Past in Flames and the Manamorphose, and then you have a ritual in your hand, and all of a sudden you're casting Past in Flames after you cast Ritual Manamorphose, and your graveyard has Ritual Manamorphose in it, and you just go crazy.
Yeah, I think it's always right to put the Past in Flames in the graveyard because of that, but it really depends on how much mana and access to mana they have. The card you always want in the graveyard as well as Manamorphose, because you don't want them to draw a card in their hand, then be able to Past in Flames and get another card.
Like if you want them to fizzle, you're probably supposed to put like Past in Flames and Ritual in their hand.
Yeah, it depends on the scenario.
For sure.
We won't get into that because it really depends on how many cards they have in their hand. And their mana
It's
and
very
situational
site
dependent.
specific or whatever you want to call it, situationally specific.
So we talk about gifts. We talk about the scenarios of what they could possibly take. 4 of the, I don't want to say most important card. We're not going to be redundant with that, but very important to this deck in specific because of the addition of 4 more creatures. This card was legal when the Pyromancer's Ascension, but it wasn't played. But now because of Baral, you're seeing this card really take over the deck.
If they just need to cast Past in Flames, sometimes you'll see them get like Past in Flames, Ritual land or something like that.
Sure.
So that they can make sure that they get them out of the cast Past in Flames.
Yeah, there's like infinite scenarios where they
Yeah.
can put like 4 cards. I've seen like multiple creatures to make you think they want a creature,
Yeah.
and then they have the creature in their hand. And that's it's one of the sneaky cards.
It's a really cool card because you're playing on both what you need, what they think you need, and like what they think that you think you need, or whatever. And it just like keeps going and going and going, and it's super interesting. So yeah, definitely a lot of interesting play patterns with Gifts Ungiven.
Yeah.
And Past in Flames, like we said before, this is the main win condition of the deck. Most of the times that they win, this is how they win.
Yeah.
They just use this to cast a bunch of rituals and cantrips again, and then they cast gifts again, and they get Grape Shot, and then Grape Shot doesn't have flashback because of Past in Flames, but you can just flashback Past in Flames with all the mana you made and get the Grape Shot and then kill them.
Yeah, and as in this deck too, which we'll see in the next slide, there's multiple Grape Shots. So once you go off with Past in Flames, the likelihood of you being able to gather enough mana and then be able to get another Gifts Ungiven going, it's really high. So you're going to be able to get to that second Grape Shot. So even if the first one only went off for 8 or whatever, you're going to be able to play the second one and then be able to maybe buy the second one back on the flashback from.
Well, the first Gifts Ungiven gets you 2 Past in Flames, or finds you Past in Flames, and then Past in Flames makes you a bunch of mana. You cast Gifts Ungiven from your graveyard because it has flashback from Past in Flames, and then you can just get, if you want to kill them, you can get 2 Grape Shots and that's it.
Yeah.
And they go to your graveyard immediately, and then you have enough mana that you flashback Past in Flames, and then it layers on top and gives Grape Shot flashback, and you just cast the 2 Grape Shots.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's an outlier in this slide: Repeal. It's a 1 of in the list. It's mainly there to be able to deal with anything that'll stop them from winning game 1.
Yeah, sometimes you need some time too. Like it cantrips and sets you back against a Death Shadow. It's nice for that. It's good against like a Thought-Knot Seer if you see that game 1, and you can use Ritual to get it out earlier if you really wanted to. You might go down a card doing that, but you get a card back there, and if you're targeting Thought-Knot Seer, you get another card back, so it's kind of nice there.
Yeah, usually you'll see like an Echoing Truth, like a 1 of or something like this, just because there's certain players in Modern that, deck specific, really have cards that are haymakers for this deck.
Yeah, something like Thalia would be really annoying.
Yeah, exactly, like Death and Taxes. And we'll get into that a little bit more with the sideboard. So, next slide here.
And these are the
actual win cons. This
yeah,
is
like
what you're
the win
going to die
condition is Past in Flames, but this is how they actually win. There's 2 Grape Shots, a Merchant Scroll to find Gifts Ungiven or Peer Through Depths.
Yeah, or Remand.
Or Repeal.
Whatever.
Or Remand, yep. Yeah. And 1 copy of Empty the Warrens to just naturally, make 14 tokens, or to, as your kill condition when you can't get enough copies to deal 20 damage with Grape Shot for whatever reason.
Yeah, it kind of diversifies your threat package. The only thing it really doesn't stop, I guess, is Soul Sisters going off.
Yeah.
Can't really gain that much life, but I don't know. That'd be a challenge acceptable.
I mean, it definitely stops like pressure from something like Tasigur or Death Shadow. And you could see them use Empty as a speed bump, like make 6 tokens, block for a couple turns, and then go off after you've, recouped a little bit and like figured everything out.
Yeah.
Like you see the deck do that sometimes. Caleb Shearer and Jacob Ball were playing a version that had like Goblin Chieftain in the sideboard and Reckless Bushwhacker, so that their sideboard plan against Graveyard Hate was to just like empty Ritual, make a bunch of tokens with Empty, and then like play a Goblin Lord and attack you for like 15 in the same turn or whatever.
That's pretty sweet.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's my style, but it's super cool.
All right, and the last card in this deck, Remand. I know this is a card you play with a lot.
I like this card. It's a great card.
It seems almost like a perfect card for this deck.
Yeah, it's very good. The added synergy with Baral is super interesting, of course, as it allows you to loot away, excess Barals or just dig deeper, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's really good at stopping the one thing that they have to stop you.
Sure.
As they often will only have 1 to 2 pieces of interaction, and provided you wade through the first fatal push or whatever, and then you toss out another creature and try to go for it a few turns later, and then you can remand their Manly Cryptic Command, whatever they have, or their Colligan's Command, or whatever thing they try to do to get you, remand, because a lot of the interaction is a little bit more expensive than what you're casting, which is all 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
Also, you can use remand to kill them with Grave Shot. You can Grave Shot them for 9, remand it, Grave Shot them for 11.
Yeah, that's a sick interaction you were talking about.
You can retain priority, and all the Storm copies will go on the stack, and then you can bring back the original copy, draw a card, and recast the Grave Shot for the win.
That's really winning in style, and I like that a lot. But I think one of the main roles for this card is, we talked about the turn one, you want to be playing a cantrip spell.
Yep.
If you don't have a creature, or sometimes in matchups where you want to be able to play the creature on turn 4 or 5 where you can go long, this is the perfect thing to be doing on 2. You can get them to maybe try to commit something that they think is going to slow you down, and you not only just you get the Time Walk effect and you draw a card.
Yeah, you don't play a creature, so they look to establish a clock. They
Boyf.
try to establish a clock, and you hit them, and then you play the creature on tap, play the third land, and just go nuts.
Such a tempo swing.
Yeah. You also can just remand their 2-drop, play your 2-drop, and a land, and win the game.
Yeah.
Because 1 gets 3, loses 1 gets 3, Metamorphose, blah blah blah, and then you're passing Flamesing and it costs 3, and then you're flashing it back and it's just crazy. They're already dead on turn 3. Remand's super good, and also if they don't cast anything into your remand, that's great. It's almost better when they know about it.
Yeah.
Because if they don't cast anything into your remand,
sometimes you don't have
you just have more time and you still have a remand.
Yeah.
And then you can bait them with Gifts End Step and all that sort of lots of tricky patterns with this deck. And how are you casting all these tricky spells?
We got some lands.
You've got some expeditions.
Yeah, we do. And some
over
tokens.
here.
So we've
Whoever's
got
deck this is, they're just showing off a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. You gotta flex on them a little bit.
Yeah, of course. They got
All right.
Modern Master Scalding Tarns though. I'd call them out on that. I'd be like, nice $130 Flooded Strands and $55 Scalding Tarns.
Oh my god. All right, so
Gotta hit 'em
we
where it
got a
hurts.
few fetch lands. We've got a couple shock lands here. We've got Spirebluff Canal.
Great addition to the deck.
Perfect,
Helps with the mana a lot.
Except when it's your 4th land.
Except when it's your 4th land, but you have enough rituals that you can mitigate that sometimes.
Yeah, this deck doesn't play a ton of lands and also doesn't want to draw a lot of lands. It wants to sit around 3 to 4 lands and that's it.
This deck wins all in one turn too, so sometimes you can just take the game in one turn. So the fact 3 life, you can win the game in 3 life, whatever,
Yeah.
The fact that you didn't deal yourself damage from having to get a shock land the second time is super important. The first Spirebuff Canal is maybe one of the best cards in the deck, at least for making sure you stay alive that long.
Yeah. We got one of each of the basics. My favorite artwork for Ice Age, a little snow cover.
And a nice Amonkhet Mountain. I see
Yeah.
that they already spent all their money on the Expedition, Flooded Strands, and Steam Vents, that they didn't really want to
They had
go
to
all
down
out
a little bit.
on an unhinged mountain or whatever.
And here's the sideboard. So the first slide features the 2 Dispels and the 1 Swan Song, which are part of its disruption package for 1 mana. They just want to be, as, I don't want to say low to the ground, but as cost effective, because we're tapping out a lot. We're utilizing every piece of mana.
Yep. This is sideboard cards, right?
Yeah, these are sideboard
Okay.
cards.
It'd be awesome if there was a tab that said sideboard so we don't confuse people, but whatever.
Yeah, well, they're sideboard cards.
Again, learning, right? We're stumbling through this first time, so not a big deal. But yeah, so we got 2 Dispels and a Swan Song. I like the split.
Okay.
Not too bad. Swan Song hits discard spells and randomly hits
It hits everything, I think,
Anger
except
of
for
the
Graph
Gods.
Digger's Cage and Relic.
when you have a bunch of...
Yeah. It's hitting those. It's hitting Rest in Peace. It's hitting Leyline if they didn't have it to start the game.
Yep.
Dispels just function there to deal with a counter war.
And then 3 Lightning Bolts. You need to deal with something like a Delver of Secrets or against the Burn deck.
Mirror.
Or maybe you're expecting Hate. Lean and Arbiter maybe is annoying.
Yeah.
Can't shuffle and stuff like that. Or can't search, I mean.
It's good versus aggressive decks too. I could see bringing it in versus Zoo to just slow them down.
Yeah, you
a
bring it
turn.
in versus any Wild Nikala deck. I bring it in versus any Noble Hierarch deck. The Counters Company deck, you
Yeah.
definitely want it against. Infect, if that's something you'd see. Young Pyromancer, Delver of Secrets. A lot of different stuff. Lightning Bolt's pretty good.
Yeah.
From the sideboard. You just pretty streamlined game 1, and there's less hate bears or hate creatures that you need to deal with. But the post-board games generally slow down because your opponents have more interaction. So as a consequence of that, Lightning Bolt lets you interact as well and like keep the slower pace and not be like too susceptible to their interaction.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot.
All right, we got one of package of all the 2-mana spells. We got everything here. We got Echoing Truth, which is a catch-all for every non-land permanent. Gets all the copies, which is kind of key. You'll see a lot of games where, I know I've slammed double Leyline before and been like, oh, this is great.
I'm all good, yeah.
And then, no, it's not great.
I think the fact that it kills a bunch of tokens or that it kills 2 Leylines or whatever makes it a little bit better than something like Wipe Away, which would be, uncounterable or whatever. Okay. That's something that Legacy decks have played in the past. So.
Sure.
But also Legacy decks have used Echoing Truth too. Echoing Truth is just a really efficient answer to keep Storm decks, keep the hate away.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good at doing that. We got 1 Hurkyl's Recall and 1 Negate. All these things can be gifts for. I'm not exactly gifting for a Negate very often because if they put it in your graveyard, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Although
or
you
if
could
you're
always
using
do
it, you've already passed in flames, so
Yeah,
you're already
yeah.
kind of going off.
You could do something like cast Pass in Flames and then like now you have Negate up if they elected not to counter it, so now they're dead or something like that. But that's like super weird in corner case.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt that's happening very often. But the other 2 things we'll get gifts for frequently. Give yourself some time, and then
Definitely.
you can always Pass in Flames and get it back.
Hurkyl's Recall deals with the artifact cards that I mentioned that Swan Song doesn't deal with. It's also very good versus Affinity, obviously. And I don't know if it really comes in versus... Like, you'll bring it in versus Lantern, but it's, I think, mainly there for Affinity. Mm-hmm. Affinity is one of the traditional Storm decks, like, nightmares matchups.
Yep.
And I'll get into here. We got some cards that deal with
sweepers
Affinity.
again, diversifying with your gifts packages,
Yep.
so you can like gifts for Clasm, Anger, Pass in Flames, and Bolt or whatever, and then like maybe they don't want to give you a sweeper, so they give you the Pass in Flames, and then you just go off.
Yeah,
like that happens too.
And I think these numbers are going to go up in somewhat due to the fact that we're talking about, you mentioned the counters deck. It did really well this last weekend. There was 3 decks in the top 4 of the Classic, and it's been putting up some decent results. It's actually broke the front page on MTG Goldfish for the Moto metagame. I know it's a deck a lot of people are talking about.
Should they have 1 Clasm, 1 Anger, 1 Sweltering Suns, so that they can truly gifts for a sweeper?
I don't mind that. In the cycling, sometimes you'll actually be able to. If you draw multiple copies, you can cycle that away. Mm-hmm. Not a bad idea.
Another empty there.
Another copy empty.
Fair plans.
I'm not a huge fan of this because I feel like I guess if they surgical extract it, all of them are gone anyway. I'm trying to think of why you would want the second copy. Because of running 4 gifts, you're going to be able to get to one of the win conditions.
Well, I just think that like I said, the post-board games slow down a lot. It's nice to have a second empty because you might have to win with it because there might be some graveyard hate going on. But the first one got thought seized or whatever. Like these are things that can happen.
Sure.
Yeah. Like you don't want to be cold. You want to make sure that you have options because like your deck can still win long games. It can still weather the storm a lot of the time.
You don't want to be turning Morel sideways for 19 turns.
You don't want to be relegated to attacking with your 1/3. Okay. Yes, you do not. But attacking with your 1/3 and 8 1/1s is a perfectly fine way to get them dead when all they have is a Tarmogoyf or whatever.
Yeah. True.
So yeah, I like the empty also because there's one more short thing worth mentioning is that you can use empty against some rather savvy opponents. They'll think that you are trying to get up to Pass in Flames plus Ritual, and they'll know how much that is, either 3+1 or 4+2, without a 2-drop. So and they'll try to stop you. They'll let X things resolve until you have 5 mana, but they won't let you get to 6 mana.
Sure.
And then you can just be like, oh, well, empty. Make 10 guys
and
or
you
12,
got an extra spell.
12 guys, and you still have a card or 2 in your hand, and you can attack a couple times and win that way. And then we got a Mind Break Trap, which gets the Mirror good. It's Ad Nauseum. And it gets Cavern of Souls, Eldrazi, as well as
Sure.
A random Master of Waves or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of cool, though.
I think these 2 cards are like the really high impact cards. Like you mentioned, what Mind Break Trap's there for. Shatterstorm, kind of in the same functioning role as Hurkyl's Recall.
Yep.
Except in this deck, it's like really weird because sometimes you'll have a plethora of rituals. Mm-hmm. And, when Affinity drops their entire hand on turn 1 or 2, if they don't have the Thoughtseize or the Spell Pierce,
play your second land, play Ritual, Shatterstorm.
Yeah.
Game ends.
Well, yeah, pretty much, especially if they have Wonder Voids in it. So, So yeah, some super high impact cards for the tough matchups. Final thoughts?
Yes, so we got asked when we came in, like, what's the first random thing you can think of? And Dan said, like, Hulk Hogan in America.
Yeah.
And I said, 2 fat guys in the same bird costume.
And here we are.
And we got as close as we could to that.
We did.
I didn't know. I wasn't told why I had to give the most random thing I could think of. But I guess now it came full circle. I figured it out.
Yeah.
Pretty.
So moving forward with this deck, I think it's a really good deck. I think it is a deck in Modern that if you put the time in and you know it inside and out, you're going to be able to have a good edge on your opponent.
We've seen John Finkel play this deck for years and years. Came back to being good again.
I even picked it up for a while. Remember that when I was like, man, I really like this deck. And then it wasn't good then. But
yeah.
I figured that out really quick.
It's a cool deck. It's better than Blue-Red Doctor Prison or whatever deck you were playing.
We got to give it a grade. We got to give this deck a grade for this weekend. I'm going to give it a B+.
I was shooting around B+. It's weird that I agree with you. I'm going to go with B+ is fine. I was going to go with A-. Yeah, I think I like the position of this deck.
The only reason why I'm going to go with a B+ is because I think more people will be prepared for this than I would have liked. Because of a lot of people are preparing, for the metagame that's online.
The best cards against this deck are like Thoughtseize and Spellsnare. And Thoughtseize you get a lot of it. Spellsnare you're not getting a lot of it all lately.
Yeah.
Spellsnare is really good against this deck. Also, just like equip Cranial Plating attack with a 9/1 Vault Scourge on turn 3 is pretty good as well. So
yeah, and Affinity is just one of those decks.
But I don't think Affinity will be super popular
for this weekend.
I've been changed from the Daddy to the Dabby.
The Dabby. Okay.
Did that happen?
That should be the name. That should be the name of the chicken. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the deck of the week, Modern Storm. For those of you that are interested in more content, Kevin and myself, we have a show called The Weekly Ward every Wednesday, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. So that's tomorrow. So definitely come check that out if you're interested.
We might have a special guest on our show tomorrow.
Oh, we will have a special guest.
The GP Montreal Trophy.
Okay. I like it.
Going to make an appearance, so that'll be that.
Yeah, we'll definitely be able to give a rundown of that tournament while getting everybody ready for SCG Baltimore. And next week, we're going to be doing the deck of the week, getting everybody ready for GP Omaha, and we're going to be featuring...
We're doing my Team Remarkable deck from the weekend,
Kevin's
which was pretty good.
Yeah. And looking forward in the future here, we're going to be doing some more streaming as well, not only Magic. So for everyone here that's here for the Magic, we're going to be putting more Magic stuff out, so that's for you and everyone else. We're going to be putting some more content out.
We'll have some Pokemon, some Yu-Gi-Oh, some of the Wargaming, HeroClix or Warhammer or whatever, some content on that. We've got a lot of people who work here who know a lot about different games.
Yeah.
So, we'd be remiss not to utilize their talents as well as ours.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot of that stuff coming down the pipeline in the future if you guys play multiple games. And a lot of people who play a lot of games. So it makes sense.
Yeah. And lastly, if you came kind of in halfway between, these are going to be up. All of our Deck of the Weeks will be up the next day on our website, kerwinsgamestore.com, as well as on our YouTube page. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's Modern Storm. We'll see you tomorrow for the Weekly Ward. If not, we'll see you next week. Tamir Marvel.
Yep.
I'm Dan Ward.
And I'm Kevin Jones. Thank you.
Later.
The fighters are ready! Daddy is ready! The refs are ready! Are you ready?
Correct exemplar on turn 2, attack you for 7.
Whoa.
We'll see
Have
you
a
next
good one,
week.
guys. Thank
12:30. We'll be back and better than ever. Oh, I'm doing a dab.